excited that Ryan Brothers from the AV department is here to join us to talk about hybrid and the virtual event component of your event fundraiser. I really do appreciate you taking the time to share with our audience, because they ask me all these questions and I have no clue. I'm like, wait till Ryan's here, ask him. So I'm sure you brought your answers for all those too, right, Ryan?
I think so. We'll see.
Awesome. So as you know, at Auctria, we share lots of information to maximize your event fundraiser. And I know many of you are pairing the fundraiser with a virtual or hybrid show. And that's why we are tapping out and we are tapping in Ryan Brothers here. He joins us from the AV department. So I always ask in my webinars, I ask people in the bottom right-hand corner of the chat to tell me where you're tuning in from. Tell us what type of group you're fundraising for and geographically what type of group you're fundraising for. And while you do that, I'll just cruise on through a couple slides. And then I do have a survey for you. So Auctria is celebrating our 10-year anniversary, and we're proud to share that over $350 million, actually, I need to change that. I just got an updated number. $400 million have been raised with 40,000 auction and event fundraisers coming through Auctria. So we've been busy over those 10 years. And like I said, we're appreciative that Ryan Brothers is sharing his part of his day with us and to join this legacy. Ryan, before I turn this over and let you chat about the AV department, I see there's a bunch of people tuning in from all over the place. We've got California and Washington and Empty Bowls and Birmingham, Chicago Creative Coalition, museums. It looks like they've checked every box that's on my slide here for organizations. I do have another question that I'd like to ask the group. Actually, two questions. I kind of always start with a survey. As of right now, which I know this is I have my drink here. It's a very fluid situation. As of right now, what is your event plan? Is it hybrid in the room and virtual and an online only, or are you kind of undecided at this time? And I'm curious as to, have you conducted a virtual or hybrid event yet? And whether it was over the summer or last spring, or maybe even last fall as all the virus activity was unfolding. I'll let a couple more people chime in here, and then I'll share the results to the survey. We can continue the conversation in the chat, but I also invite people to join our Facebook page, or our Facebook. Well, our page is good also, but our Facebook group, Auction Team Talk. And I know Ryan and some of the other AV associates in his office answer some questions on there. Sometimes they post. There's all sorts of people that are running event fundraisers. There's professionals like Ryan and some auctioneers, and it's a good way to kind of connect with people that are doing the same exact thing. I know sometimes in these organizations, it's just a couple people that are running the auction, and you kind of want some other auction people to talk to, or event fundraising people to talk to. And it's a good place to connect. So I'm going to click end voting and share these results. So it looks like about 30% are planning hybrid and in the room, and then 20% are going virtual only, which is probably a pretty good choice. And then, have you conducted a virtual or hybrid? 40% have done that already. Fabulous. Congratulations. 10% are no, and 7% are working on their first one right now. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn this over to Ryan. I'll sit back, and I've got my pen, and I'm going to be taking notes as well.
All right. Thank you, Lori. Great introduction. Yeah, so my name is Ryan Brothers. I am the production manager for the virtual department here with the AV department. We're based in Portland, Oregon. We do everything from media development to making documentaries and videos like testimonials and appeal videos to put into virtual streams and commercials and things like that, to producing virtual fundraisers, virtual conferences, webinars, all sorts of things. And then we have our on-site AV company portion, which obviously is in limbo, and that's why we're all here to chat. We do have some hybrid events that we've done, some hybrid events that are coming up this fall. We even are booking as far as the spring for hybrid events, and we'll get into that a little bit about why it's important to involve virtual in your life no matter what. So that's the AV department. A little bit more about me. Um, I saw somebody checking in from Salisbury, Massachusetts. Hello, I'm from Massachusetts originally. Obviously live in Portland now. But I come from the music industry mostly. So I brought that up last time Lori and I chatted, and I figured I would do some. I love doing analogies for things. So we're going to see some great, hopefully you think they're great, analogies to sort of the music world to try to help bridge the understanding of what a hybrid is, if we can even define what a hybrid is yet. Um, and when I first moved to Portland, I worked for a nonprofit organization called the Oregon Symphony, the oldest symphony west. I think it's west of the Mississippi. Amazing symphony orchestra here that suffered when COVID first hit a year and a half ago, and I had a great relationship with the AV department from work that we had done together, and because of the huge demand for the virtual live streaming world, I actually took a job at the AV department. Here I am full time. So that's a little bit about me. Um, so some of the agenda today is to talk a little bit about everything. I'm going to define a hybrid event in just its basics as if you were to look it up in a dictionary, but also sort of open it up to all of you to put it in the chat of what you think a hybrid event really is. Explaining the dual audiences, your audience at home, your audience in person. Maybe you have watch parties and you're interested on how to set those up, and some success stories or struggles you may have had. We always love to hear about, and how we can try to make those easier for people using technology, whether that's the internet, computers, anything like that. And then we'll talk about just the resources that you'll need, and throughout planning the event, how far in advance you should plan, how many people you should really have on your team, what different elements in the room do you need as opposed to virtual. Um, and then we'll get a little bit into the fundraising aspect of it, and how Auctria can serve your needs really well in this environment as a great platform. And then also the content is what I work on a lot, teaching you, the representative of a nonprofit organization, or even other types of corporate entities, what kind of content do we need to be able to loop that in graphically to a live stream simultaneously to a hybrid potentially. So this next slide, Lori was kind enough to provide for me, and it just sort of gives you an idea of what a hybrid could be. So when you try to define a hybrid, like I said, you could use the most basic definition of a hybrid event. We could even start with a live stream. A live stream is when you transmit audio and video over the internet. That's all a live stream is. It sounds really complex because you need to like hire somebody to do it, right? But we've all been watching broadcasts, which are just a broadcast would be audio and video over satellites, perhaps, or antennas, so TV. That's broadcast, and now live streaming is the big thing, right? So there's Twitch, which is a multi-billion-dollar company that just is full-time people live streaming. There's YouTube, which is a tremendous amount of live streaming, plus TV shows that are more popular than the most popular hour on cable TV these days. There's YouTube shows that knock those out of the water. So when it comes to live stream, bridging that into a hybrid event, now you have your in-person audience, obviously, and you're still live streaming. So you have to ask yourself, like, what is the makeup, or what do you expect of people attending your event? Um, is it 80% of people in the room? Is it the people that were there 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Are they going to come back with the same amount of folks? Maybe you did a live stream event already, and you got some new attendees from across the country that would never have attended in the past. We've even heard amazing, adorable stories of we have a family watching at home, and a mother or father donates on behalf of, their 6-year-old child who's watching and getting really excited to see their name up on screen. Um, so start to think of in your first planning process of how many people do you want in person? And then what is your goal for virtual? Um, I firmly believe that if you can get 20 people, just 20 to watch virtually in a hybrid event, it's going to be successful. Um, the One of the many benefits of the virtual world is that it's really inexpensive. Um, you can hire somebody like the AV department or production company local to you that excels in live streaming, and it's pretty simple to take those camera feeds, those audio feeds. They'll bring an on-site streaming rig and just stream right from that location, that hotel ballroom, that event space. They just hook up to the internet there, and they could actually stream in tandem with running a live show. Or perhaps this room behind me is used for everything from our governor's press conferences to webinars and to live streams from across the country. We brought in people from 20 different time zones into this room behind me. So as long as you can get 20 people to watch, it's going to make it worth your while. Those donations will cover the cost that it might take to add a virtual element. You're going to naturally expand your audience, and with a pandemic out there and no signs of it slowing, unfortunately, it offers the best opportunity for people to feel comfortable staying at home as an option. So this slide, this is my attempt visually to explain how I interpret a hybrid event. So this is where I first bring in my music analogy, my music industry info. So I sort of think of it now, in the beginning, there were a lot of folks that said, like, I know what hybrid is. And they tried to pinpoint it and sell that. So you had like an auctioneer saying they knew what hybrid events are. It looks like this. And there may have been something that failed. And then they came back like, maybe that wasn't the exact way we should have done it. There's event planners who may say, I know exactly what hybrid events are, and they do it the way they want to. And there's still a learning curve there for the best event planners as well. And there are things that we've already learned and are still going to learn. So I can't tell you as a tech guy exactly what a hybrid event is yet, but I'm here to say that it's your job to figure out what the hybrid event is. And what these pictures represent are what I would see as 3 different venues. So think of yourself as like a songwriter. You're a songwriter trying to write a song. There's an awesome TED Talk by David Byrne from the Talking Heads. It's only 15 minutes and it's a fun watch. And David Byrne sort of talks about how different musicians over the course of time wrote their music for the room that they were in. Like how much creativity and planning is done for the success of that artist based on the room that they were in. And so he goes on to saying, when he was first writing songs, it was a room like CBGB's in New York, which is a famous punk club. And he built these songs and these rhythms based on sort of shouting over a loud, drunk crowd. And then as he got more popular with the Talking Heads, he had to write music that translated more in a bigger arena. So his example for like the best kind of example for a big arena like you see on that top right picture is like U2. Like U2 has these big melodic like long notes. So each one of these artists are writing something different. So when you're trying to write 2 different things, so you're the songwriter here working for a nonprofit, you have to sort of write multiple songs for your album. And if people are going to be watching in your living room, I'm sure you've heard this analogy before, but you don't want, or not analogy, but this example of what happens for hybrid events. You don't want those people sitting on that nice couch at home watching people in the live stream just to have dinner or socialize, right? That's gonna be the FOMO moment, the fear of missing out. Um, but you're writing a different tune for those folks at home, so you can put different elements in there, different instruments. Um, perhaps you time the virtual event to only happen during a specific part of that in-person event, right? So you could have a pre-show that starts playing while your in-person audience is finding their seats, socializing, getting a cocktail, or eating their dinner. In that pre-show, you could simultaneously sell airtime like it was a commercial. You could sell airtime to sponsors, just as you could sell tables to an in-person event. So there's lots of different options there. You could incorporate, like Lori had a great intro with the poll, right? She took a poll. You can do that in live streaming in real time. You can send people out the code, who we know are going to be watching at home. You could have a little chat going on, and you can send some information in the chat on how to participate in a poll. So you can keep your audience active in a virtual live stream while miscellaneous things are going on in person. It's tougher to plan that in-person event because as much as we want it to start right at 6 p.m. sharp, there's going to be some delay with the human element of people socializing and waiting to get everybody in their seats. And, maybe there's a really important donor that you want to make sure that person's happy before the event gets kicked off. So in the virtual world, we can start things right on time because we have people home, in front of a camera, and we could say, all right, and action. Um, so that's sort of what this analogy is. You are the songwriter and you're writing different songs, and you have to plan on writing two different events. Um, so the hybrid event has a way bigger learning curve because in our world, if you think about what the tech professionals have to do in live streaming, we know that there's a little bit of a delay, right? That's the big thing that folks have realized with perhaps selling auction items. You need a really skilled benefit auctioneer to sell auction items in real time, especially if there's about a 20-second delay, right? So you need to talk about the item and say, all right, we're going to sell this item in 10, 9. Lori, tell me a little bit more about this packaging, right? So you're trying to like buy time to um, make sure that folks at home have the chance to donate. You don't call the wrong donor live. Now, we've learned over the past 18 months, there's lots of different ways around that. We can degrade the quality of the video to minimize latency or that lag. So basically, in order to get information in high definition across the internet, the higher the definition, the more quality that video we're sending out, the longer it's going to take, right? Just has to go to servers owned by somebody else and up to satellites and then beam down to Comcast or your local provider and then into your home internet. So we try to give as many options for folks to understand, like, this is how it all works. And then you have to write this show, you have to write this song to sort of play along with the elements that are not fixed. You rent out the event space on the bottom there, that pretty wedding venue sort of event space. And it doesn't even look like they have an audio system, right? So there's elements you need to add to everything: a virtual stream, a hybrid. You need to hire a benefit auctioneer. Perhaps you're going to bring in a secondary MC to speak directly to that virtual audience, so your in-person auctioneer can talk to that live audience. So figure out first, as I mentioned in the previous slide, what you think the amount of folks are going to be in person and then at home. What are your goals for those two, whether it's percentage or total amount? And then once you have your venue, write the show around that, because your benefit auctioneer needs to know, are they talking to a small room and a big virtual audience? Are they talking to a big room with 250 people and a few less folks, at a TBD amount of people at home? So write the songs that are appropriate to the venue that you're going to be working in. Oops, I skipped one. And then,
That's my bad. I think we both
oh,
pushed
did
the
we?
button at the same time.
No worries. So, and I mentioned at the top. So how are hybrid events like sports and music? I have so many fun analogies. I've already used the restaurant analogy earlier. Lori and I were talking before the show. Um,
Now I'm hungry and now I want entertainment and I'll watch the
so
football game tonight.
yes, yeah. So in honor of the beginning of the NFL season tonight, I'm a big football fan, so I had to put something football related in it, I guess. Um, so we're going to talk a little bit about how sports and music and other fun analogies are like hybrid events. Now, I do see what we do at the AV department as if we are like chefs in a restaurant, Lori. So I'm gonna get you even hungrier for lunch. Um, you out there working for these great nonprofit organizations, you're providing us with all of the ingredients. So you're going to give us your script or your run of show. You're going to give us your PowerPoint slides. Maybe those are for the pre-show. Maybe they're for the program. You're going to give us your link to Auctria so we can embed our live stream on it. You're going to give us your brand and style guide, the correct font to use when we have little lower thirds pop up and acknowledge the name and title of your guests and speakers. So think of us as like the chef that's going to whip up this great meal, but you have to provide us with all these ingredients ahead of time. And then when it comes to the sports analogy, this is sort of a real world comparison of, I guarantee every single one of us has watched some sort of sporting event in our lifetime, whether that's the Olympics that happened recently or football that's happening tonight. As we all know, there are people that live locally who can go to that game and buy tickets, and they can sit in the audience and have a completely different experience than people at home. That's all a hybrid event is. So I want folks to start challenging us at the AV department of like, what can we do in the virtual space? Because the event space, you already know how to do that. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of planning. You got to hire lots of different folks to come in and help make it a beautiful event. But the virtual element, start thinking about how you can make it like a sports event. So in sports, there's all these fun graphics that pop on screen, like this quarterback, has thrown this amount of yards, and you see all these fancy graphics, and they got the first down line. Um, Auctria is based in Ottawa, so maybe I'll use more hockey references. So, um, so what else? So yeah, you can have a sideline reporter, and somebody that's near the penalty box saying like, okay, we just got this guy who's in for a 5-minute penalty. That's a terrible analogy, but yeah. So think of what you want to see on your home screen for people that have chosen to watch at home. You can have any sort of graphics flying around, fun games, you know, text to donate, all sorts of things like that, that the people in the audience don't even have to worry about, but they've purchased a different package to view it in person. And when I think about dual audiences, the three buzzwords that come to mind for me are content, communication, and focus. So I've talked a little bit about content already. The primary content for all live streams, and for a large part for in-person events, is your pre-recorded material. So somebody on your team or somebody you have hired has created a really nice appeal video that sort of tells the story of the last year of the company and who you've helped and why your mission is really important. That's your content. Your content also includes PowerPoint slides typically. That's going to be for sponsor acknowledgement, educating your guests, virtual or in person, how to participate in the auction. Maybe the folks at home need to register their credit card before they get logged into the system so they can bid on those great auction items you have on Auctria's site. So that's really the content. We talked about the chef analogy, right? Those are the ingredients. Communication is extremely important in my world. If I'm in this room directing a show on all these fancy computers, and Lori is helping out with an event in Florida, then how is what's going on in that room and what's going on in this room going to be communicated? Well, every single hybrid event we do, we have to have a member of our team on site. It's just way too difficult to teach an AV crew that we've never worked with before the language that we use to run a show, the timing that we use, the new software, because we know other great AV companies that we've partnered with to help us with events, or we've learned from, or they've learned from us. And they use, maybe one uses OBS, we use vMix, one uses, StreamYard. There's all these different programs that you don't need to know, so don't worry about that. But there's all these different programs that folks are going to use. So we always have to have somebody on our team on site. So if you wanted to hire the AV department and you're in Florida to run your virtual event, we would just fly somebody down there. We would test your event space's internet. We would have basically they'd be called a technical director. And the reason you need somebody like that is to simultaneously cue the same elements in two places. Now, it's tricky when you have the internet involved, right? I already mentioned that it could be up to 20 seconds delayed. So you have somebody in person saying, all right, now we're going to watch this video. And the video plays in person because somebody's physically pressing a button to play that video. But that technical director on site needs to be actually physically talking to somebody over here in Portland, Oregon, to tell them, all right, get ready. They're about to cue the video. So we have to try to cue everything perfectly timed with a little bit of a delay so that both audiences see the same thing. And that's most important because once that video ends, we go right back to that live speaker, that MC, that auctioneer, and they're hitting their script right away in person. So if we're even a little bit behind in the virtual world, we're going to cut off the beginning of their sentence. So that technical director on site is something really important to think of. It just goes to show that there are a lot more moving parts to it, and you have to make sure you're supported by an AV crew that's competent enough to run both. And of course, as I mentioned, if you're lucky enough to have somebody local to you, that professional streamers, and they have on-site AV, your PA and audio and microphones and podium and projection screens, absolutely bring them on site. Try to get the stream run from there, as long as the internet of your ballroom is sufficient enough. And then the last thing is focus. Now, focus applies more to your talent, your MC on stage, and your auctioneer. Their focus needs to be discussed well in advance, and that could be your idea of how the show is going to run based on my venue analogy. Maybe you wrote a beautiful song, or it could be their idea. A lot of auctioneers are like, no, this is the way that I run my show. It's going to be great. Trust me. Well, that's amazing, but they have to tell you in a run of show, which audience are they talking to? Do you need an extra camera with somebody actually moving a camera around stage? And is your auctioneer looking directly into the eyes of your virtual audience? Or perhaps are they only looking at the audience in front of them, who are going to be your top donors perhaps? And maybe the AV crew needs to just have a wide shot to capture wherever that person's walking on stage, and a close-up shot, and we'll see if we can follow them. So their focus of which audience they're speaking to is really important, and that will determine how your AV is set up. We think we've coined this term, but the hybrid filmed in front of a live studio audience version, which is an auctioneer speaking directly to a camera with their script below that camera and lighting to make them look great on camera. Behind all of that equipment is the audience. So it's as if you're like, watching, you were there for a taping of like Friends or Seinfeld, right? We all remember the laugh tracks back in the day, but it's as if you are part of a live studio audience. It's a really fun experience. You still get your banquet tables and your dinner, and you can, put your bid paddle in the air, but the show is really more focused to the virtual audience experience, because there are some groups that want to use that virtual platform as a way to have a high definition recording of that whole 90-minute, 60-minute event, and they can repurpose that and put it on social media and other places. So there's, again, so many different ways to write your song that would be a hybrid event, and it's about double the amount of work, I would say, of putting it all together.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Lori.
Right, Ryan, there's a question here that's related to your next bullet that's on here. I'm sure you're going to get to it, but Jeffrey was asking that you refer to lag time and online audience, and use the information related to the high quality video and that lag. What's the best practices for the auction to close where timing is critical?
The best option for in my opinion, as again, a tech person, not an auctioneer specialist, but the way I've seen it work the best, Lori and I both know a great auctioneer named Patrick Siver, who's really good at it. And he's good at it because he surrounds himself with a team of folks that are also really good at it. So the delay and lag can be corrected. We use Vimeo as a driver for live streaming, right? There's YouTube, Twitch, Vimeo, Facebook, all that stuff. Vimeo we like the most for what we do. Vimeo is introducing a new feature where they can actually minimize the latency. And the way that they're doing that so far that we've read is not by degrading the video, but introducing more servers to process these things. So it's kind of like either they have to invest in more equipment or we have to suffer. So thankfully, so a lot of companies like Twitch is owned by Amazon, which has AWS, Amazon Web Services, which is mega, and they're able to get their stuff off way quicker with better quality, actually. But you're not going to have an older crowd who's your primary donor base watching on Twitch, right?
Right.
So to minimize any error in that lag process, if like you know that you're going to have a high definition stream, it's going to be about 15 to 25 seconds delay to various audiences. The auctioneer needs to have team members off to the corner of their eye, and they need to be tracking the field for that bid and donation progress. So I've only seen it done a couple of times with the hybrid event, but you'll use Auctria software essentially. Somebody will be typing in, I think, paddle numbers usually in the software to act as though they're virtual bidders, because you can't see people at home raising something. So everything has to go to a virtual platform like Auctria. And then you have somebody keeping track of all bids, virtual and in person. And essentially, they'll have to physically click a button that closes the bids from happening. And then they signal to your auctioneer that the auction item is officially closed and your platform can't take any more bids. And in front of that auctioneer, you just get a display monitor. Like, so if we work at home, right, we have a computer in front of us, maybe it's hooked up to a secondary screen. You can mirror display any screen in front of your benefit auctioneer, and you can have anything from a Google Doc saying like, Ryan Brothers just won, or you can have Auctria's software just mirror displayed, and you can enlarge it so your benefit auctioneer, like what Patrick has done, can see like, okay, congratulations, Lori Hockman, on your trip to Cancun, right? So I hope that answers your question. But yeah, it's really about having somebody that's done it before, and they surround themselves with a great team to do it and understand sort of the rhythmic process, if I can bring music back into it, about closing that auction item without sort of making a mistake.
Right.
Um,
I
I,
remember for those auction items, it's one auction item, and there is a slowdown. Once it gets gigantic, there's less people bidding, and just like it happens in a room, they're not auctioning off automobiles or cattle where they're and they're ripping through everything. It's a much calmer auction experience.
yeah, that's a good
So,
point. Yeah. Um,
sorry, I interrupted you.
no, that's okay. I think we can go to the next slide.
Happily.
Move my little screen here. So, um, sort of gone over some of this, right? So, who you need and what you need. Auctria is a platform that can handle both. And I know that because we here at the AV department we're approaching around the 550 stream mark in the last year and a half. We've been very fortunate to have been able to work with over, I think, 350 different nonprofit organizations in less than 2 years in this space. And it's been amazing to work with them and help them. And we've done about 550 streams in that time as well. And Auctria, we have streamed on more than any other platform. So we love Auctria because it's never failed. It takes our Vimeo, takes our YouTube, whatever we want to put on there. Everybody has a great experience, we hear. So the first thing you need to get is Auctria, obviously, a platform that can handle both. I already mentioned you sort of need somebody to be that in-person technical director. Well, now the crews are split, right? So we have a director and a producer who would run the virtual stream here. And then you'd often have a director and producer on site as well, and they are focusing more on cameras. We always love to bring at least 2 cameras to every hybrid event. I mentioned earlier, you have your sort of static wide shot that gets the whole audience, but you can also have a mobile camera. And then what's really popular these days with hybrid events is to have sort of a back of the room camera that reveals to your virtual audience what the room looks like, because we want them to see all the effort that you put into this room and its design. Even if they can't be there, these folks really want to see like, oh, I recognize so-and-so down at table number 3. So we've been often cutting. So in this room, we'll say, go to camera 3, go. And it shows the entire audience. Maybe it's a transitionary period where your MC is introducing somebody on stage, and we can take that camera shot and get a whole vibe of what the room's like and say, oh, wow, that looks pretty, right? So And you can tell us exactly what you want. If there are hybrid events where we've just done the one camera, where we really designed it more to speak to that virtual audience. So you can start planning ahead for that. And on your personal teams, for you nonprofits out there, perhaps you want to include a different event planner or an additional event planner. I've worked with a team of one many times, where we know that nonprofits don't have the budget to have 6 people working on their team. So you have one person making the PowerPoint slides, getting the videos done. I know I'm talking to people currently that are editing their own videos, and I'm sort of teaching and screen sharing Zoom of like, no, so this is how you splice and transition. So we're happy to do all that, because we know that some folks don't have a marketing department to make an event banner, and some people don't have a branding or style guide. That's what we love, though. We love to just be like, we got it. Like, you're gonna love what we create for you. Um, but if you do have the ability to have somebody dedicated to the in-room and somebody dedicated to the virtual, that can be really helpful. Whereas that you have to book, catering and all sorts of stuff for that ballroom. Um, it might be a good idea to think about having somebody just work on what they want the virtual stream to look like. If you go to our website, you'll see no 2 streams look alike. In the 500 plus streams that we've done, we try to make every single one unique, because we don't want your organization to look like the organization we did last night. We want it to be exactly the colors. If you want a Hooray for Hollywood theme or a Denim and Diamonds theme, we will trick it out and make it really fun. So it does take a big focus to work on that one virtual project, though. And then I sort of talked about additional talent as well. I came up with this. I like the sideline reporter idea, where you have somebody talking to that virtual audience, and they can be on site in that room, um, or they can just be while something else is happening. It can sort of be like the red carpet at the Oscars, where you have sort of like a pre-show vibe, where somebody's taking you around, and we have somebody following with the camera. So definitely, again, feel free to get creative with it.
I love
All right.
that.
So everything that I've said, I think the idea is that the term hybrid, just throw it out. That's what the term hybrid means. It means, it sounds scary. We often brand things in a really scary way in the tech industry. It sounds like live streaming and hybrid. It just doesn't sound right. And it sounds super complicated. And it also has the opportunity for people to say like, oh, I know what hybrid is. Don't worry, I'll plan your event for you, right? Just make it whatever you want to make it. Just, you can throw out that term altogether, and you just plan for an amazing in-person event, now that hopefully we can have people safely back in the room together, and whatever that means to you.
Right.
And then write that second song. So plan that in room as you normally would, and work out a really fun creative thing for a live stream. Or perhaps you can't do a hybrid event after all, and you're just focused on doing a virtual event. You know, most of the shows that we've worked on have all hit their goals and then some. We all know, because their expenses are lowered when they don't have to do anything in the room. So there's a lot of benefits to just going virtual as well. And it's also important to plan for the virtual no matter what, because if your state shuts down, if your event space doesn't want to take the liability upon themselves and puts that all on you, if there's like a COVID outbreak, we've heard so many horror stories of like people just having to cancel for a plethora of reasons. Um, we want you to at least plan for the live stream, because we know we can make that great for you. And if something bad happens because of the world out there, that your event will still have life to it. It'll still have legs on that date you've chosen.
Oh,
Um, yeah, go ahead. Do you have something, Lori?
no, there was a question in here that's kind of related from Marissa. It says, "How do you know when your organization is ready for a live auction? I have a huge fear that no one will bid if we do live auction." So you're kind of talking about your audience showing up and things. I thought that would it be appropriate here to chat about for a sec.
That's a great question. I don't know if I can answer it, to be honest. As someone who's still learning about the auction space, um, I don't know if I can answer how one would know. I mean, if you're doing a virtual stream for the first time, and you're getting a lot of engagement. You're getting a lot of engagement in the chat. You're getting a lot of folks like possibly donating or going to the site. There could be a good litmus test for if they'd be willing to participate in an auction. But I don't know, what would you say, Lori?
I'm always testing the waters. I always stick my toe in, see how the water is feeling. For instance, even way back 6, 7, 8 years ago, we had done a live event and we were thinking of doing it online. So we had a couple duplicate auction items. A couple of them I had at the silent at the actual event, and then I threw up a couple online and we tested it, and then it worked. And so then we pivoted over. Obviously, you don't have that length of time when you're talking about virtual here, but you have a Facebook page. You can start streaming stuff out there. You can start working on that pipeline, getting people used to seeing you on Facebook. And what are the returns that you're getting on that? Are people engaged? Are they sharing with other people afterwards? So I think there are a couple things that you can kind of test out your market and your audience to see if that's something that they're interested in. And then there's always SurveyMonkey. Ask people, what do you want to see? When do you want to see it? And will you participate? And then bribe them a little bit. Show up with a raffle. Show up with a reason to tune in. Whether it be trivia or entertainment or something that gives them a reason to be there. So you really have to go like 360 degrees around and answer that question from your audience, your potential audience, your volunteers, and kind of look at it, like I said, 360. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me too. Yeah, the cool thing about virtual is that you can try so many different things in the span of an hour. I always say that if you're playing an hour-long show in the virtual space, you need some sort of element, whether that be pre-recorded material or perhaps like a fun trivia game or something to break up that show. Because what you don't realize is that being in front of a camera for 45 straight minutes is not okay for some people. They need a break
Right.
to take a drink of water, to watch, to use the restroom, to stretch. So there are fun ways, like Lori said, you could put an auction item and test the water and sort of talk about the auction item. Maybe you have a video revealing some sort of vacation package that you can use and talk about it. And then you can highlight it later on, sort of segment your script and run a show like that. So yeah, I could see that. I see a good question that comes up a lot in the chat for about adequate internet. Our rule here is that there are two different options that we use to test your internet, and we can all do that at home right now if you wanted to. Fast.com, FAST.com. It's a site owned by Netflix. And as soon as you go there, just test your internet speed. There's the big number, which is your download speed, or how many megabytes per second it's taking something and putting it on your device. And then there's a little small number that you have to click for below, which is your upload speed. That's what takes what's going on your computer and sends it to us. So that is the most important thing, the upload speed. We're looking for the number 10 or higher. The most common numbers we see are like 4, 5, and 6. That's because most internet providers just don't give you a lot of juice there. It's more people's demand is for downloading so they can stream. So they've sort of knocked off a lot of points in the uploading space. So 10 is great, and even your venue 10 is fine. We would like more than 10, and that's because we need to figure out that internet connection that we're hard pinned or Ethernet connected into. Is that also branching off to a Wi-Fi signal? Are people in the audience going to be on that during the event? Do we need to have some sort of isolated system? So at least 10 for an upload speed is what you should be looking at. There's also, the way I do it is if you go to Google and just type in internet speed test and hit enter, there's usually a little run speed test button that Google provides that does it as well.
Awesome.
And then just to finish up this slide, a couple of the questions that I get a lot are, how does ticketing work, or what could go wrong? the AV fears, like, wait, what if this happens? The best sort of, I learn these things from other people, right? So the best ideas that I've heard about like ticketing for events is sell the in-person event like you normally would. And then, of course, you can't sell tickets to your virtual event like you normally would because they're getting a completely unique experience. So you can sell specific tickets for the virtual world. Um, and we know how to password protect videos. So that's been a common thing that we've been doing a lot more. Sometimes we'll build landing pages to act as the hub of the stream. Other times we'll put it on Auctria's landing page or event page. But we can actually password protect things. So you can set up something through Auctria or through like Eventbrite or any of these services where as soon as they purchase a ticket, they get an email with the password for that video. Or you can collect all the emails that have purchased tickets ahead of time, and then 48 hours before the event, send out that password so nobody shares it. So it's not foolproof, but it's been working really well, and we haven't heard any complaints about it for ticketing for two different audiences.
Right.
Um,
And we see a lot of the VIP swag boxes being sold on the Auctria platform, as opposed to, or in addition to, in event room, VIP drive-through foods, drop off, all sorts of creative ideas to make that in person, or that the at home people feel just as participatory.
yeah, and the big AV fears are, we all know everybody's not like the most techie person. We all know somebody who maybe is that person, right? Who may have challenges just, running something on their computer. So it can be a huge fear of like, what if the internet goes down? What if the stream goes down? Um, the only things that can really happen are like with any event, there's an act of God, right? So it's like if you have an event space that you've rented, it's the same risk of the power going out as it would be to run the virtual event. There's nothing that we haven't thought of as a good backup for if the stream goes down. This very office that I'm in has 3 studios, and we have this internet box essentially. It's not a technical name, but if the internet goes down citywide, we at least have some juice left to be pushing for another 10 to 15 minutes. And then after that, we just have to hope it goes back on. That doesn't happen very frequently, though, right? So um, the AV fears I would not worry about. And thankfully, we haven't encountered anything like that. We've had the internet go down on us once, and we were able to put a little hold slide up in the virtual stream and just say, we'll be right back. We prepare for that every stream just in case. And then, we'll let our live talent know, hey, there's something going on with the internet. We'll be right back. But I would not worry about any AV fears at all. As long as you've done your due diligence to test or ask your hotel about that speed and if it's going to be dedicated to your streaming rig or your audience, and figure that, or call us and we'll help figure that out. I think
Awesome.
that would mitigate that. All right. So to finish up some things, one of the coolest things about doing a virtual production is that you just produced a movie. So this beautiful song is turned into a soundtrack to a movie. You can take that video, you can edit it down, put it on Instagram, put it on Facebook. Maybe it's got some funny highlights that you can cut out of it, and maybe you can use it as a sizzle reel for next year. My favorite thing is sort of becoming like we at the AV department want to become like the Netflix of auctions. That's someday, right? So nonprofit TV. Um, if you keep doing virtual events year after year, or maybe it's biannual, you're going to have episodes to a show that you can look back onto that are going to be really meaningful about like where your event has gone year after year. And again, this isn't an super expensive service to just do a virtual event. Where the AV department charges in the ballpark of $4,000 to project plan, direct, produce, help coach you and provide you with script templates, help you understand all the technology, and direct and produce with your live talent a full length movie. So it's quite a deal if you want, to integrate Auctria and auction packages and this video that you're going to get. The other thing, bringing it back to my sports analogy, is like you think of these as sort of like sports highlights, right? So you watch your ESPN and you get sort of little like clips of this whole entire package. Think of your finalized product, this virtual movie that you've just made, as that. Um, and it allows you to keep fundraising too. So folks that have already done a virtual live stream are actually going to, we have just a couple of them, but we are taking the live stream that they've already done, and now they have a hybrid on the books. We're going to be replaying last year's virtual event as a pre-show, which is kind of cool. So they're finding ways to use the material that they've already created, all that hard work they put in, that has the same links to donation platform and text to give, and they're using that to educate their audience before the event even gets kicked off, and they can see how successful or how much money they raised perhaps the year before, and they can really get excited for the next version of that, the next episode.
Awesome. And I know you brought along some pictures here, Ryan.
Yeah, so whenever we bring on a new group, I know that visual representations are going to be. I can talk and say a lot of technical words like lower thirds and enhanced graphics and all these things, but nobody's going to know what that means until I show them what I mean. So the next couple slides just show you what I'm talking about. This is a studio, so there's three different basic types of train rides you can take. You can buy a ticket to the virtual world, the studio world, or the hybrid world. The studio world is by far going to be your easiest because you don't have to worry about anything tech. You just come to a facility, ours, or obviously there's folks from all over the country here today, which is awesome. There are plenty of great spaces, AV companies, music venues, that you can find that have a nice space and that can provide essential TVs and cameras and lighting to put in front of you. This shot with the green and purple border is our most recent stream from our Studio A, we call it. Go to the next one. We have Studio C, very similar, more of like, I like to call it like the YouTuber studio. It's got like really intimate settings and can get a beautiful camera shot because the entire thing is dedicated for sort of a conversation feel. And then I'll go to the next one here, Lori.
Yep.
And then just to show you the variety of sort of the events that you can pull off and what the crews view. So this is, you see me down there in the bottom left in Studio B. That's where I'm sitting today. There's studios that we've rented out or gone on site in the top left, Studio S there, down about a couple miles away from us in Portland. And then on the bottom middle and bottom right, so where it says H, that's a hybrid event that we did about a month ago at a vineyard. So we can set up all this stuff that sits behind me in these other pictures. We have a whole mobile rig that we would bring on site, and it's just to show you like what do we look like how much we have so much control over everybody's audio and video, and advancing slides and things like that. So there's a lot of custom control that a good AV company can provide. This is what the talent you want to view. It's the TVs in front of them. It's their script. It's donor information. And then anybody here can always email me and ask, like, how do we set up for this stuff? I'm happy to consult with people for free. Like, I just want this to be a successful business for everybody. These are nonprofit groups. Your objective is to raise money for a really important cause. If you don't have the budget to work with us per se, I'm happy to explain this is how you set up a basic camera, scripting and audio hookup. So on the left, you see a sort of bigger one that would be run by a camera person. In the purple, you see, I guess that's me with the little AV department guide. That's how you would see us. So I could actually say, okay, Laura, you're going live in 30 seconds, so you can see and hear me no matter where you are. So I'm just trying to show you that there shouldn't really be a stigma about the virtual elements. Like, it sounds like a lot of gear and a lot of internet and techie stuff that could go wrong, but just think of it like we're coming to you over Zoom. It's not that complicated. And I'm saying you're going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, right? So very easy to do. We'll coach you through all the different setups. I think that's it. I think that's all I got.
And then we were talking about viewing the show. Obviously, people can view it from the stage or from the live stream that you're putting up. And then, of course, I have to remind you, the event fundraising is obviously the most crucial part. And with the Auctria platform, these are just 9 ways that you can continue to use Auctria to, make money for your cause. Sponsors, sales, promo, solicit your items, your ticket sales, raffles, food, drink tickets, dessert dashes. We see them both ways for virtual and in room, wine pulls, text to give, and then merchandise sales. And there's a full webinar. That's just a single slide of that. So that wraps up. Actually, this is our Q&A, but I also want to pull up your information, Ryan, so everybody has it, and then we'll go through if there's any questions or comments here that we missed. That's your website. I know you guys are active on Instagram. I see you there all the time.
Yeah,
And I do see you guys respond to Facebook stuff also, and there's your email address. That's the best way to catch you, right?
yeah, and shout out Christine, our marketing director, is amazing. She's she takes a lot of the photos of the events behind the scenes and puts them out on Instagram and Facebook, and she's tremendous in sort of answering everybody's questions on the fly out there in the social world.
I know that in itself is a gigantic job.
Yeah, it is.
So I will go through and see if we have any questions. If I missed anything, feel free to drop it into the bottom here, and so we can access it. There's a question about apologies, I came in late, but we definitely are one of the lower levels of Auctria. Basically, we aren't going to have support from the organization. It will all come from us. I'm still learning about the site, but would it be possible for us to run a live stream and other things through Auctria on our own? So
on
can
your
they
own?
do this on their own, Ryan?
Yes. Yes, you can. There's going to be a learning curve like there is to anything. So if you have done a live stream on YouTube, would probably be the easiest way to DIY it and figure out, how to take that embed link and just put it onto your Auctria event page. That would be my easiest one. So that's how you create the stream or the source of the stream. And if you do have a professional YouTube account, you actually have to switch it over to a live stream setting 48 hours in advance. So do that now if you're really thinking about doing this. It takes up to 48 hours to approve your account for live streaming. And then the next part of that is then you need a program that takes your video feeds and packages it in a way to send it to YouTube. That's OBS or StreamYard are sort of the more starter level ones. OBS I think is probably the most popular. And then yeah, I would at that point, if you're DIYing this whole process, you've never done this before, I would have everybody in the same room. So pick like your house. So like if you want an auctioneer and an MC, don't start adding different cameras into it. It's the audio thing. The reason I think that our company has been really successful about this is nearly everybody that works here has been an audio engineer. I used to mix live bands in front of 20,000 people. Like Andy, who's our primary technician, has been an audio engineer and went to college for audio engineer. So that's the most insanely difficult thing, is like routing all of your voices. And sometimes people want musicians, voices in a crowd, and then mixing them or making them sound better. So don't introduce too many feeds or camera and audio. But yeah, OBS and a YouTube, and good luck.
And by the way, we had Ryan on, was it March, April, May, earlier in the year? I've kind of lost track.
It seems like 5 or 6 months ago, maybe.
And
I don't
you
know.
provided a lot of information that was very specific to that. And that webinar is still available on playback. So if you want to catch a second segment of Ryan Brothers, you can do it. There was some really good content on there. There was another question. Are we streaming to, oh, I think we got that. Is the hybrid, I think we got that one too. Sorry.
I can give a good piece of advice while you're looking as well. Something I
Please.
didn't mention is I mentioned that pre-shows are really popular if you haven't done a event like this yet. So you can make your own slides on, I recommend canva.com. You can actually get a free Canva account if you can prove that you're a nonprofit or a school.
Correct.
And it's amazing. I use Canva all the time. But maybe you like PowerPoint, and you can use PowerPoint or Keynote or Google Slides. They all work. But you want to create a nice pre-show. And one of the biggest things when you're doing an auction is to encourage people to use two devices. One, to watch the stream. So like a computer is, I can see the statistics of how people are watching, and 80% of people watch live streams on a computer, so desktop or laptop. The second device is going to be your phone, which is why text to donate is really important, or using the Auctria app or website to go in and actually bid on items on your phone while you can still watch the live stream and track what's going on. So that was something I didn't mention. It's like a little bit of a technical thing. Use the pre-show to instruct and educate people how to get prepared for it. And then at the top of the show, have your MC or auctioneer saying, this is a 2-device type of show. Make sure that you're watching us right now on a device like a laptop, and get your smartphone ready, because we're going to want you to go to this site. We can pop something out on screen and people can figure out where they're going. But that's a good thing to know, that it comes up a lot in project planning.
Awesome. That's great advice. And then this is how to stay in touch with Auctria. We post regularly to Facebook and Twitter. We get tagged on a lot of auctions. People always ask us, what do other people do? What's it looking like? If you follow us on Twitter, I retweet everything we get. I get tagged on. We get tagged on. Auctria gets tagged on. And then on Facebook, we've got our Facebook page, which we post regularly. Somebody had noted in the chat that they didn't see anything. Maybe they're on the wrong page, because I know on our page, at least daily. And then the Facebook group is called Auction Team Talk. And I invite you to join us on that conversation also. You can always email us, hello@auctria.com. And then if you're feeling overwhelmed, we do have our Auctria Launch and Auctria Assist, where you can use our services to help you get set up, including your website. And then if you're doing a virtual event, we'll actually do a rehearsal with you and your AV team and work through those specifics for you and make sure that you're set up for success. So awesome. I think that's the last of it, and we're up against 2 o'clock. I know we've used a lot of your time today, but it's really, really appreciative, and the information that you give us is just so vital. This is something that's outside of our auction world. We've observed and we can see things that have worked, but we just want to make sure that people are getting the information directly from the source and the experts. And thank you so much, Ryan, for being that person for us today.
You're so welcome. Honestly, if anyone has any questions for me, definitely email. I email every single thing that comes out my way. I just hooked up a group that only had an $800 budget with a group in Boston, some folks that I know that stream, and they're going to do their stream for their budget. So even if it has nothing to do with the virtual world, it's more techie stuff. Definitely ask me questions. I love doing this, and it's so rewarding to see nonprofits, hit their goals through something that we designed and co-produced with them. So I'm super happy to be here with you, Lori, again, and we'll do it again sometime, I'm sure.
That sounds great. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thanks for joining us.